This is not, oh, Jens Pulver's a fighter, blah, blah, blah. This is, you know, you brought up some pretty heady stuff that you have talked about before publicly, but it's some pretty deep stuff for you, some emotional stuff that gives you a real feel for Jens Pulver, the person, and where he came from.
Yeah, and that's the thing, you know, when it comes to the arcade style of it, is now it's allowed to, obviously, again, when you do the simulated games and things like that, they just want to know, you know, they just want to play football. They just want to play golf. I'm not trying to find Tiger Woods' backstory when I get on, you know, Tiger Woods golf, or I'm trying to play daily or something like that. But if you go back and you check out Daly's story later on, like, dang, he had these problems, got broke down in the middle of the golf course one time when he was battling and, you know, trying to get fixed. So, and it's just nowadays the number one combative sport is MMA. And it's just something that I happen to be part of, but I'm a gigantic gamer too. So the new style of fighting is going to be, you know, MMA. It's still an arcade game. And that's where people, I don't understand, or they need to, I think once they play it, like when you see it now, probably when you heard of it, you're thinking, oh, another MMA game, you know what I mean? But it's not a simulator. That's your difference. No, it's not Madden football. It's an arcade game. This is a Tekken compared to the UFC and the Strikeforce. Those are simulated games. My biggest thing was, though, in the very beginning, were the people saying, "Oh, it's gonna give MMA a bad name," and so but I told him a long time ago. Wait, and it's like, were you there? You talk about giving it a bad name. Were you there when nobody knew what we were doing? Were you there when we could walk through the airport? Were you there when we had to call Hooters and say, "Hey, can we watch the UFC down here so we can sit together as a group?" And they said no. You know, we got basketball on tonight. Were you there when I could walk around, me and Tito could hold our belts in the air? And Matt Hughes used to hate that. He's like, "Why? I'd wear that thing out front." Because nobody knew what it was. And they would start trying to at least draw attention. What is this? What's the UFC? Right. And he'd say, "Oh, it's that Ultimate Fighting," and they would all say, "Oh, Horace Gracie, Ken Shamrock, Tank Abbott, yes, it's that." You know, those were the only three names they knew. So I was there when it had a bad name. That's when I started. So it's just funny for people to say that. It's like, this is, how do you give the number one sport on the planet a bad name by having an arcade game?
You know, you talk old school about the game and everything. You've kind of had to go a little old school now since leaving the WEC and stuff. You know, everybody was saying, Jens is done, he's over, and it was a rough ride for a while. You know, you went through some pretty tough times, but you know, now that you're not in the spotlight as much right now, I don't think a lot of people realize you've come back and you've won, I think, 3 out of your last 4 fights. You're coming off a win over Cody Wheeler.
Yeah.
Another WEC veteran. That was a pretty big win for you, and I think your bantamweight debut, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
How are things going for you in the fight career? I mean, what's your outlook right now on that?
You know, I mean, I feel good. I wish, it's kind of tough because, you know, I wish I could, I want to fight. I want to fight every 2 months. And the one thing people don't realize is I fought 4 times this year. And, you know, moving up to Crystal Lake, it wasn't because, you know, I had issues with coaches or anything like that. Why it helps me is this is the first time I've ever got away from my home and lived in a training camp. I never did training camps in my career before. And it's different because I got a 14 by 20. It's literally my 14 by 20 jail cell, so to speak. No windows, you know, and it's where I stay.
Is that at
and it's at Curran. Yeah, I'm with Jeff Curran. So what it is, I don't leave the environment. I had to make a decision. Am I trying to be am I focusing on retiring or am I focused on fighting? And for me, if I'm going to focus on fighting, you know, if you're not ready to give it up, then commit 100% to it. And that's kind of my goal. When people ask, what am I doing, or why am I fighting right now? What am I fighting for? I'm just fighting to walk away from the sport with no regrets. And by that meaning, I gave it 110%. I trained hard. I'm doing it for all my old coaches when they would try to get me in the gym and I'd show up, or, you know what I mean, for the half-assing that I did sometimes. It was just a mental block. Physically, I'm still there. Physically, I feel incredible. This is the best I've ever felt. And, you know, so the reality is they need to understand more than what they just see on an internet page. And it's just like anybody else, or what they read in an article, or, yeah, the losses came at a crazy time. But, you know, it was up to me to fix it. And so when people say hang it up and this and that, I'm all right.